Paul, what's going on, buddy?
Not much, my guy.
Oh,
Just
nice, nice.
looking forward to another great episode.
Same here. How's our newest listener doing?
Now he's doing good, dude. He's so chill,
Good. Yeah.
except for when he's not. No, but he's pretty chill. You know, if he's fed, burped, clean diaper, and not tired, he's happy.
Oh, can
Um,
confirm. After meeting him the other week, so that was exciting to be able to get to meet the little guy.
hmm Yep. So yeah, I think how was the well, no, well, that's a bit of a tangent. I was going to ask you about your rug, but I was
We'll
going
do
to
an
take a whole
episode on
other.
that in and of itself. I mean,
Yeah,
for the
you
listeners,
did
you
your
saw.
post on it,
Yeah,
and
yeah. Well, we can do like a exclusive piece on that because there was a lot to learn from that. So, and I'm just gonna use it to like segue into what I wanted to talk about today. Is I mean, there was a lot for me to be thankful after that trip. My, I mean, we survived the mishaps. We still got to do our death march. We still had just a phenomenal time visiting. My mom and I went down to New Mexico, so we had a phenomenal time visiting with my sister-in-law. And at the very last day, we're loaded up to the airport, and we got a call from my brother overseas, and his he was calling to tell us his deployment ended, so he's already back in the States, safe and
oh yeah,
sound. So there was just a lot to be thankful for on that trip. And that, like I said, this is going to lead us into the topic I wanted to talk today, which is about gratitude. You know, um,
hmm
it's a very important topic to me. There's been so much good that's happened in my life, and even the bad like shapes you, and sometimes you're just like, well, you kind of have a weird sense of gratitude for just every event that happens in your life. But like, how often are like do you experience like true gratitude like outside of like yourself? And really just wanted to talk about what that looks for us as well for you as a dad, like how you gonna teach your kids like this habit of being
hmm
grateful for each and everything, and then just for us as people, like individuals.
yeah,
Is it where does it come from, like in our lives? Like, were we taught this? How do we pass this on? Or is this just something that is in our nature, which I don't think it really is?
yeah, yeah. That's a really good point, and I'm really excited about this topic as well. It fits really well into the recurring topic of mindset.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a gratitude mindset versus not, like how does that affect the rest of your life? But so you mentioned that this topic is really important to you. It's near and dear to your heart. If you were to try to sum up why that is there like a specific life event that highlighted it for you, or have you noticed like the is it more just like continuous results and effects of it, or like why is this so
No, that's a
important to you?
that's a very great question. I think it's more the second part of that. I could point out very specific moments in my life where I was just like awoken or to the like how grateful I need to be in my life for certain things, but it's built up over my life, and it's only gonna if I think it's only gonna continue as we grow older, Paul. And it's something that as kids, like you don't. In my thoughts and perspectives, and it's just part of it is like the more responsibilities we have as we grow up, the more we have to be thankful for. As looking back at when we were kids, At least myself, we didn't have any worries or didn't really have to think about what was coming our way. Mom and dad took care of that. And so seeing where I'm at in my life now with all my accomplishments and failings, and then looking back at where I was as a kid, it was just like, we had just the traditional provider and nurturer in my parents. And it's just like, like overall just so grateful for that. Like every little, and like I said, there's all these little parts where I could say I was awoken to, like I was just like so gracious, grateful, thankful, whatever word you want to use about that specific moment in my life, but it helped build that attitude. And I think, like you said, the mindset, this attitude of just being gracious and grateful for what the hand I have been dealt, whether it's won me some rounds of poker or not. It's this is the cards I have, and I'm gonna make I am going to make the most out of them that I can. So this attitude and almost kind of like sense of responsibility that this habit implies, so to say.
Yeah. Yeah. That has my gears turning as well. I think I'm going to hone in on that last bit there of it being a habit,
Mm-hmm.
because what is mindset if not just like a habitual way of thinking?
Exactly.
And there's a quote or like a an analogy, a mythological legend. I think it comes from a Native American tribe. I could be wrong, but I've heard it multiple times, and it's that within ourselves we have two wolves. There's the negative wolf and the positive wolf.
Right.
And the wolf that wins, the wolf that survives, is the one that you feed the
Mm-hmm.
most. So gratitude, the habit of gratitude, like you mentioned how it has had such a positive effect on your life, like that I think is is food for the positive wolf. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
and I'm going to draw another picture here. Well, I recently read a book about like why we sleep, and the author talked about so many different studies about sleep and the effects that they have on the individuals.
Right.
And I promise you, there is a connection to gratitude here. But
I mean,
whether
I want to see where this goes. Let's do it.
maybe tenuous, but there is a connection. But anyway, those who are the more sleep deprived you are. So if like you're regularly getting less than 6 hours of sleep,
Mm-hmm.
you are more and more inclined to have your fight or flight uh, reaction like triggered, and you're just going to be seeing negative everywhere. Uh,
Yes.
and there was one specific study where I think I could be mixing up the studies, but I think in this particular one there was some sort of sleep deprivation, but I think in this particular one they were having their REM sleep interrupted, so they would let them
Mm-hmm.
sleep, but as soon as they went into REM, disrupt, wake them up,
Right.
let them go back to sleep, REM, wake up. And then after 2 to 3 days, the subjects of the study were like starting to get paranoid and
Mm-hmm.
starting to show like various mental disorders and
Dang.
and and like starting to accuse the people coming in to check on them and help them and whatever, like of trying to kill them. And all of that has to do just because of the amount of sleep that you get. So similarly, the amount of like or I should say on the flip side of the coin, okay, you can you can allow yourself a significant amount of sleep or a sufficient amount of sleep, and you will be that much more positive. But you can also take it farther, and you just start practicing gratitude, and
Right.
you further increase your positivity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think they go hand in hand, honestly. So there's a website that I visit frequently. It's called the Daily Stoic. Just to bring some philosophy into this. And I'm not a huge fan of his philosophy, but I think something he's onto something here, and we've talked you brought this up. But Marcus Aurelius, Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the Romans philosopher emperor, had a very good quote on gratitude. It came down to, let me see if I can find it real quick. Convince yourself that all things are gifts and that things are good and will always be good. And that's like you're saying, like you have to have this positive mindset. So the more positive you are, like gratitude kind of naturally flows from that, right? Because you're seeing just how good everything truly is, and why would you not? Your first disposition towards that is going to be like, wow, like this is amazing, and then you have a sense of appreciation for it, and then gratitude. So I absolutely agree with you, like on that whole mindset thing. Like positivity and gratitude lead basically to one another.
Yeah. So, regarding Marcus Aurelius's quote, I think that holds so much power because in life, like everything is so complex.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's going to be black and white, and we see that especially, or I hope we see that in today's political environment where everything is so polarized.
Mm-hmm.
But I know people on both sides who are great individuals,
Right.
and and I respect why they believe what they believe and why they're standing up for what they stand up for. But like they each have their own experiences and their own the things that they're focusing on
Mm-hmm.
that lead them to those conclusions and to support, to lean more left or right.
Right.
So
Right.
it's I feel like it's kind of similar here where name a thing that happens, like you miss your bus,
Right.
right? You're going to be late to work, and there are two things that are true. One is like you're late to work,
Mm-hmm.
and like that nothing's going to change that. And the other is okay, like now you have some extra time to listen to a book you've been meaning to listen to, or a podcast, or
Right.
whatever, while you wait for the next bus. And like both of those things are true, and you
Mm-hmm.
can, like, nothing in this example is changing the fact that you're late to work.
Right.
So you can either focus on the negative and feed the negative wolf,
Yeah.
or you can focus on the positive. And what's going to happen if you focus on the positive and you're grateful? Oh, at least I have a book to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the "at least" phrase can be kind of triggering, but like same set of circumstances, but who's going to arrive to work more positive, more who's going to have a better day
Right.
at work? The
Right.
person who's, oh, man, I missed work, my boss is going to count on me, like I was really hoping to get a coffee beforehand, whatever.
Mhm.
Or okay, hey, I can finally read that chapter I haven't read, and that is going to set the tone for the rest of your day. So like,
Absolutely. Well, and then I mean, you've worked in a big corporate office setting before. Like those people that miss their bus and are negative about it, then they're absolutely outwardly vocal about it for the whole morning, and then dragging everybody else down with them. So
mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, it really is such a powerful tool that we have available to us. And, I don't, being grateful doesn't mean ignoring the bad stuff that happens. It doesn't,
Correct. Right.
and in fact, like doing that can be damaging,
Mm-hmm.
like you need to acknowledge the bad that happens, but at the
Right.
same time, it just comes back to that. Like what you focus on will impact the rest of your day, the rest of your life.
Right. And alluding to what I said at the beginning, hindsight's 2020, but even like the bad stuff or the mistakes I've made in life, like I don't regret them at this point because then you go down the butterfly effect rabbit hole. Okay, what if I didn't make that mistake? Would I still be here? Would I, blah blah blah. You can write out a whole multiverse theory about what would have happened 10 years ago if you didn't do that, but here you are today happy
Mm-hmm.
because you did make a mistake at some point and you learn from it, or it altered your life's course in one way. And yeah, you're still living very happily about it. So I agree. You have to acknowledge and then once you can, it's not saying it's like something bad happens and you have to like be totally accepting of it. No, you have to go through the stages of human emotion and grief over that, like to fully accept all that. But at
Mm-hmm.
some point in your life, like you said, like you have to accept that and acknowledge it. Otherwise, you're just going to suppress like your your what's the words I'm looking for, Paul? You're just not gonna have a good time.
No, no. It makes me think about worrying, right? Because
Like anxiety
if
level worrying.
it I mean, maybe not that far because that like there's more
Mm-hmm.
to that, right? Like there's more that the individual has to work through to approach that, but possibly. But just like in general, worrying, like there's a saying that worrying is suffering twice, right?
Ooh, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, and it really resonates with me. But here's the deal. I mean, we have had a lot of worry, and like with leading up to Liam's birth,
Right.
based off of our experience with Isla. And I'm not going to say I never worked because I worked, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so did my wife and whatever. But there's beyond what we could do. Like we're going to go to the doctor. We're going to do regular checkups. We're going to listen to what the doctors are telling us. We're going to set ourselves up for success as much as possible. But
Mm-hmm.
beyond that, like it gets to a certain point where like it's out of our hands and what's going to
Right.
happen is going to happen. And it's only natural to worry about it. And I'm not saying, okay, quash all worry,
Right.
but dwelling on that worry of what may or may not happen
Mm-hmm.
is suffering twice because if it happens, then you've already spent all that time worrying about it happening
Right.
and you have that much less resources available for when the bad thing happens. And if it
Good
doesn't,
point.
then you spent all that time suffering
Mm-hmm.
for something that never happened,
Right.
right? So I think gratitude goes hand in hand with that, where what has happened. We can't change that. What will happen, like beyond the factors that we have control of.
Right.
But what we do have control of is how we react. You
Yeah,
know,
I think that's a very important point to emphasize there. Just the whole control element because of as you just said, I don't need to repeat it.
mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, and again, I just want to highlight. We're not saying okay, just be grateful for everything. Oh yeah, my daughter died, but I'm grateful for the growth that doesn't matter because I'm grateful for the growth that it forced me and my wife to go through. And that's
Right, yeah, no,
like
not a
obviously
sadistic,
no,
twisted sense of it, but
yeah, it does not negate everything else. Like you,
correct.
but if it goes hand in hand, I think this just speaks to the complexity of the human
Mm-hmm.
individual and the like human existence. Is I can grieve Isla and feel the pain that comes with that, while also being grateful for Evie and her health, for Sarah and her health, for and now for Liam, and both of those things can be true at the same time.
Absolutely.
And I think that is kind of therein lies the rub. Like that's the secret sauce, is figuring out or striving to figure out how to balance those two things.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that like, you have like this juxtaposition of just pure positivity in the worst scenario a parent could. I'm using your example, like your own personal example, or the worst case a parent could ever go through.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, they both can exist at the same time, and they did in your instance. And it's just to us as humans that almost seems contradictory, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
But that's how it functions. It's weird.
yeah.
I'm weird.
Because if you lean too much towards the gratitude and the positive side of things,
Mm-hmm.
like one, that's naive,
Yeah.
and two, anybody who is dealing with shit
Mm-hmm.
like is not going to take that kindly.
No, not at
No,
all.
because it negates what they're going through, right? But
Yeah.
at the same time, on the opposite end, if all you're doing is focusing on the negative and you're not taking that time to see what in your life can you be grateful for, then you're spending all of that energy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's here. Let's do a little experiment. Try to picture yourself in some sort of scenario. Close your eyes for a minute and picture yourself in a scenario where maybe call to mind something where something like inconvenient happened or bad happened.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, pay attention to your body as you focus on like the bad thing that was happening. And then shift gears
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and start to think about, okay, like what positive could come from it, or what could you learn from the scenario to become a better individual. And now reflect on how your body is feeling.
Okay.
Did you notice any difference?
Yeah, so reflecting on the negative, it was tensed up
Mm-hmm.
and as soon as we switched to like the lessons learned, like the positive aspect of it, like it was serene and yeah,
Yeah, like more
relaxing.
open.
Yeah.
And so that is a physiological response that happens like to everybody of in response to focusing on the negative or focusing on
Hmm.
the positive.
Wow.
And like there I feel like there's more energy being used up like when you're constricting yourself, and you're tensing up
Yeah.
and whatnot. So even just physiologically, there's an exertion of resources there. But so if you're focusing on that, then you're going to have less energy for everything else. And it's kind of like a snowball effect, right? Like the more you
Right.
focus on the
Right.
negative, the less energy you're going to have, which means the more you're going to focus on the negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you extract yourself out of that?
Good question.
That's the challenge. But
So I guess I mean this is a lot to unpack, and I don't know if we can do all this in one episode.
yeah, yeah, no, especially not with the time constraint we have. But
Yeah.
we can
But
always
let's
do a round
let's
two.
let's go into the next question. Like, how do we pass this on to our kids? Like, it's one thing, like I can be saying to my nieces and nephews when We do so like I do something for them, and they're all happy, and they just like run away, or like someone gives them something. It's like, yo, like what do you say to a person like when
Hmm.
they do something good towards you, you
Hmm.
know? But we got to take that a step back and introduce like this whole mindset. Like, how do we build that positive mindset? You
Yeah.
know, and especially my nieces and nephews are in a much different circumstance, going through their own situation. But so, you know, there's different elements at play there. But let's take you, Sarah, and Evie and Liam right now. Like, how do you, as a father, teach your daughter to have that positive mindset, which will translate. And I mean, Evie is a very positive little girl. I'm not gonna lie, but like, how do you encourage, teach, promote just having a positive mindset from
Dude,
that age?
I wish I had an answer. This is something I'm struggling with, and so we probably do need a round two for this. But this is something that Sarah and I are like still navigating, and it's especially, I think, one element of it that makes it so poignant is
Mm-hmm.
we we are very fortunate, right? We have a roof over our heads, we have food on the table,
Right.
and when I feel like the most need for for gratitude, I or one instance where I feel a lot of need for it is
Yeah.
any holiday or birthday,
Right.
because then Evie gets presents from her aunts and uncles, from her grandparents, from
Right.
her cousins, from mom and dad, and like even Easter and Halloween and stuff, she gets stuff from her grandparents, and there's just an abundance.
Right.
And maybe this is a little bit just like a personal reaction because we we had nothing, we wanted for nothing growing up,
Right.
but at the same time, like the level of gifts was like significantly less. So
Right.
like anytime I got something, it was like extra special. Oh my goodness, wow, this is amazing. But so that's like just one side of things. Okay, do we limit this? I'm not going to tell, or maybe I should. I don't know. Like her aunts and uncles and stuff. Like, don't get her presents.
Right.
Especially when all her other cousins get the same stuff. But maybe that is a route we would need to take. But so I don't think that's a route. And for those listening, if you have like, share your thoughts on how you how you deal with this situation.
Right.
Um, but all I'm doing is just showing more of the
Well,
problem than bringing a solution. But like the what we try to do is say, okay, go say thank you.
right. I mean,
Go
it's the
give them a
basic building block of
go
like
give them a
teaching that.
hug,
Yeah.
and talk about, and we probably don't do it nearly enough, of, hey, like, you don't just automatically get gifts.
Right.
Like, you're getting these gifts because, you know, who X, Y, and Z, whoever they are, like they took the time to think of something that you wanted, and they went and spent the money that they earned to give it
Mm-hmm.
to you, and then they wrapped it up. And but like the challenge is, it's kind of like expected, and part
Right.
of it is she's a 4-year old, right? So she's still working through that.
Mm-hmm.
But so I answered your question with a non-answer, just
No,
highlighting the problem.
this got my wheels turning because one thing is we're gonna go on a weird route here, Paul. Is okay, like some people's express their love through giving gifts, and like they know that they are loved by receiving gifts, like love languages. And here's here's an interesting aspect of it. Like I know I've talked to you about this personally. For me, my love language is quality time.
Mm-hmm.
and then hugs and whatnot, So, but it's I know I am loved by that person when they spend quality time with me, and that's like my primary way of showing that. So it's just, how do you and I've come to appreciate that. But at the same time, you can't equate gratitude and love. And I know you and I have had this conversation where you do need to express your gratitude towards another person by saying that. I appreciate you and sincerely mean it. But yeah, I told you, like, one of my pet peeves is like when you're trying to express your love or affection towards someone and you get a I appreciate that or something like
Mm-hmm.
that rather than like the same love because you're speaking two different love languages.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, like they do equal each other, but most of the time they don't. So does it like would it help? Long way of getting to this question. Sorry. To kind of like would it help to explain that to a child? You're getting these gifts because one, yeah, it is your special day, but because XYZ love you, and this is how this is one way of showing their love towards you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because that is something that has come up. But then, like, it gets tricky because then you're like, okay, but just because somebody doesn't give you something doesn't mean they don't love you,
Right.
right? So it's
Yeah.
like, and so it's challenging, right? But I think the best way we can do it is just by modeling it.
Mhm.
Now, growing up, well, let me ask you this: how did your parents teach you gratitude?
I wish I knew.
Oh, okay. So I'll
No,
go.
this is a good question. Like very similar towards, I mean, I'm not from as big of a family as you are, but same. We never needed anything that I can remember growing up. And
Hmm.
looking back, I could be like, holy crap, that moment in our life as a family was tough. And yet my parents still found a way to give me like something very special or nice.
Yeah. So I think I think there's two ways we can talk about or think about teaching gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
One is behavioral, right? Like behavioral is saying thank you
Right.
and
You got to build those
and
good little habits.
and writing thank you notes, right?
Yeah.
Which we don't really do, but uh
Do you remember the lady in Cheshire that would just pick out brothers and give them stuff just to see if they would write her a thank you card? Oh
no.
yeah. Yeah, there was a lady
No.
that would do that.
Oh, weird. No. But so I could like we do try to work with Evie to use her pleases and thank yous.
Mm-hmm.
And like we try to do it in like a fun way. If she forgets to say please, something somebody recommended was like pretend you're like looking in her hair or look for oh shoot, like where did the please go, like
Mm-hmm.
and then also talking about how like manners get you a long way, like
Right.
just very practically, like if you say please, somebody's going to be like they're going to be that much more willing to help you, right?
Yeah.
Like which may sound a little manipulative, right? But it's just common courtesy, right? Like it
Right.
it helps everybody have a more pleasant day.
Well, yeah, it
Um,
opens up the other person more towards your ask than because you're showing like you're already like acknowledging their dignity as a person and not
yeah,
something you can
that
get out of.
that's a really good tack, and maybe something I should highlight because it's like the flip side of the thank you, right? Whereas the
Yeah.
thank you is the please is hey, like this isn't something like I'm owed, like, and
Mm-hmm.
I know it's going to take effort on your part, but could you please do this? And then on the flip side, hey, thank you. Like I recognize that this took effort and energy and whatever on your part.
Yeah.
So there's the behavioral aspect, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then there's the deeper mindset
Yeah.
aspect. And growing up, we used to, I mean, we always did our blessing before
Mm-hmm.
food, and we're thankful for this food. And then we did daily prayer. And often in that prayer, if at least my mom, if not all of us, we would like say something that we're thankful for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the besides like the behavior of that practice, I think what that sets the individual up for is just like even just thinking about, oh, like what am I grateful for?
Yeah. What good happened in my day today?
Hmm. So I think that would be a way, and it's something that we have tried. Like we tried a while ago, but we it's not a habit. But maybe this is a good impetus to make it a habit. But like at dinner, or it could be really any times. Like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, what's like you said, what's something good that happened today, or what's something we're grateful for today?
Now that you say that, that awoke a memory in me. Then that's how Mama Jean would, like, we get in the, she'd pick us up from school, and before anybody said anything, it was name one thing that happened in school today that was good,
Mm,
and then
yeah,
you could talk in the car.
yeah, yeah. I love that because the great thing about that type of practice is you're not you're not forcing like a specific answer. You're not saying, okay, go say thank you to your great grandma
Mm-hmm.
for giving you a crocheted blanket, like,
Right.
uh, you know, but you're saying like you're allowing the kid as an individual to get those gears turning
Right.
and to be like, oh, so I do have stuff to be grateful for.
Right.
And, and then, I don't know, just theoretically, uh, I can't think of a specific instance that we actually have done this, but I think it would be good for us to try. Is it just take a random occurrence,
Mm-hmm.
like for example, like you see somebody panhandling on the corner or on a freeway exit, right?
Right.
That's an opportunity to maybe you're in position to help them out and you choose to do that. But it would also be an opportunity to be like, hey, like, see, not all of us, not everybody is as fortunate as we are to have a roof over our heads or to have food on the
Right.
table. I don't know where I got this from, but I'm a little bit more cynical of panhandlers. So whenever I try to help them, I try
Mm-hmm.
to make sure it's like food,
Yeah.
uh, you know, something that no can't go towards drugs or stuff like that.
Right.
But
Right.
still, it's in general, it's an opportunity, to say, hey, like we're not all so fortunate.
Right.
So and just to start asking those open-ended questions, like it's not for them to get the answer 100% right,
Yeah.
but it's just to help them get those gears turning.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. No, I think that's a really good example there, and that's something I do remember my mom kind of when we lived in Colorado, like Colorado Springs. It's kind of like Salt Lake City, but with more homeless. So, but yeah, I remember driving back up the mountain to our house and like seeing that, and my mom using them as an example to a help. Like this guy, like all he wanted was a lunch, and I think we had just bought something or we packed a picnic, and that's what she offered. She said, "I don't have any cash, but I've got a, a bag sandwich here,"
Mm,
and it was hers. And the guy was like, and he was just like almost started crying, like, because he was gonna have lunch. He didn't say, "No, I want money," but he was just like, "I'm gonna eat a meal today,"
yeah,
And
yeah.
I remember that face that he made, like that stuck with me. So yeah, there's all these opportunities that we can take to show to emphasize like how fortunate we are, but also to always see the good and the positive in each other, in like our circumstances, in whatever,
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, we've talked about like building habits, so it's just, I mean, I think because of the way that my parents had got me to build like focusing on the positive. you don't focus on the positive all the time. There's always something that's gonna creep into your head, and you're gonna think about and ponder about and maybe build up a little bit of worry about, like you said, like with Liam's pregnancy, you weren't there was genuine worry there, and there should be. Like, you can't go and but to always turn whatever that is into, like, a positive attitude or positive thinking. Like you said, like, "This is what I have control over. This is what I don't." Like, I'm gonna focus on what I can control, and that's just positive thinking, you know? So, yeah, always seeing the good just kind of I think it just naturally dispositions someone towards being more grateful in their life, more practicing of that habit of gratitude.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm listening to a book right now. It's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And I think previously we had talked about the analogy of spoons, like you have 10 spoons
Oh, yeah.
like in a day and you can use it. But the author Mark Manson, I think, he uses the same analogy but as fucks. You only have a limited number of fucks to give each day.
Mhm.
So, choose wisely what you're going to give a fuck about. Are you
Right.
going to give a fuck about arriving late to work, or are you going to give a fuck about, I feel like I should be bleeping myself.
It's
But
a podcast, we're allowed to.
yeah, uh, about, the project you're working on at work, whatever.
Right.
So, like, by focusing on gratitude, by building that habit of gratitude, which then you are either at a minimum, you're saving yourself fucks, more like you're not unwisely spending your fucks.
Right.
But you could also be like building up your arsenal of fucks to give,
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but
It's your
on that
gas
note of,
tank.
yeah, on that note of it being a habit, to build a habit, you need a cue,
Mhm.
right? So the cue could be anything. It could be part of your morning routine. If you're getting coffee, get coffee. Think about something you're grateful for, or you're sitting down to dinner with your family.
Right.
Go around, or your example is a good one, like picking up your kids from school. It's a great opportunity. Find that cue.
Mhm.
If you want to make this a habit, find that cue, or as you're going to bed at night,
Yeah.
another great opportunity.
Yeah, and, like, this whole habit thing isn't just to be in the habit of saying someone gives you something, you say, "Thank you." Like, it's you've built up, like, that habit of manners so that way when you say thank you, it's sincere and you're actually thinking about the good this unwarranted good this person just did for you.
Mm-hmm.
And because yeah, you can be polite and be like, "Thank you," and not mean it. But like I said, it's
Yeah,
folk you something good just happened, and
yeah,
it
yeah.
had a positive effect on you, and your natural reaction is just to be like, "Wow, like this is amazing."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The behavior is meaningless if it doesn't have true, if it's not genuine, right? If
Right.
it's not backed up by like
Mhm.
true intent. And how do we like how do we build that in ourselves, but especially in our kids? And I think that's twofold. That's done twofold ways. One is example, and we've
Mhm.
talked
I'd
about several
agree. Yep.
examples. And like, at you're at the restaurant, please and thank you to
Mhm.
your waiter. Super simple. Uh, yeah, you're going and you're paying at the restaurant, but they don't have to give you good service. Like they don't have to not spit in your food, Uh, and the other is, I think, they're the open ended questions.
Yeah.
You're not trying to get the right answer. You're just trying to help your kid practice or build the practice of asking those
Mhm.
questions. And if any of the listeners have any other ways that you think we can imbue or exemplify gratitude
Right.
towards our children, let us know.
Yeah. It's please do. I'm still thinking about the how we can hardwire our brain to just automatically have that like sincere You know, it's like we've been talking about habits for how long now, and like, this is like probably the first, not gonna lie, first like habit I've like actually thought about this on. It's wow, like we can program ourselves to have this sincere and not take any effort. Like it doesn't diminish the habit at all. It's just like we just had like we've built this proper disposition in ourselves to be positive and appreciative and genuine in that. Like, and it
Mm-hmm.
takes no effort.
Yeah.
Things are starting to click in my brain now, Paul, after months
Love
of
it.
this podcast.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. Well, it's all work in progress, and a lot of this stuff is that we're working on. They're not like finite things that we can accomplish. Like we can't. We're not going to flip a switch and not, like we're going to be 100% grateful, right? Like
Right.
it's an ongoing endeavor.
Yes.
And okay, so just like how can we be a little bit more grateful? Or what is one instance in the day, where we can cue that trigger or trigger that question of gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
So just bit by bit, step by step. Yeah. So
So I know we're out of time here, folks, but like I said, we need to do part two because I took us down some deep thoughts today.
yeah, dude,
Uh,
thank you so much. This
we
was a
didn't
great
spend
topic.
any time on the practical aspect of it, but can you we could probably spend 2 days on that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we were off to a good start with
Love it.
where we're leaving off.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Paul.
And thank you, listeners, for taking time out of your day to give us a listen in. But yeah, if you like this episode, share it with others. And if you have ways that you practice gratitude, or drop it on
Yeah,
Facebook or in the comments, and let us know.
please do. Yeah, already. Well, thank you, Paul. All and thank you, Paul.
All right. Thank you. Toodles.
Bye.
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 Bye.